Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Coming to you live via socials. It's the College Hoops Catch-Up Show. And what a day to roll this one out because, man, we just had an unbelievable finish down in College Park. Michigan State goes on the road and wins by 3 on a little bit further than half-court heave at the buzzer. Trey Holloman from deep. And Sparty hangs on. What a win, as they were 3.5-point dogs on the road in Maryland. So that's a big-time win by Michigan State. A lot of people were suspecting that the line was telling them a little something there, that the Crab-5 were due for a big-time win at home. They had an opportunity, but Michigan State was the better team, not the smoothest of results either way, but that was a quintessential Michigan State game, and one of the reasons why people should be believing that Sparty can be a difference maker come March Madness. But a long way until we get to that point. It's February 26th. Sean Brace, Ryan Beef Coyle, recapping it all and catching you up on all things college hoops here today. Beef, how about that finish, my friend?
Yeah, you said, we're still a ways away from March Madness. We're not. I mean, this Saturday we got March, and when Holloman pulled up from half court there, I go, the first words I left my mouth as he pulled up, I go, March. And that was awesome. So for him to cash in on that from half court was a pretty incredible moment. And as I said, March just came a little bit early, and we're kind of off to the races. That was kind of your appetizer, I think, for what's to come over the next month.
We'll hold up, though, because, look, we're talking March Madness is 3 weeks from now. You got conference tournament week, which obviously takes up a ton, and it feels like a whole different world, right? And then we still have 2 more regular season Saturdays. So when you break it down, we got a little ways to go. But yes, March is here in 2 days. March 1st will be on Saturday. So you're right about that. But when it comes to the actual bracket, filling it out, who can win, and start looking at the paths for some of these teams, which obviously takes on a whole different light when that comes around, because I was looking at it today. I got to narrow down to 5 teams. I'm convinced that 5 teams can win the championship, but I do have a couple teams on the outside looking in, and Sparty happens to be one of them. And Sparty had a huge win on Friday night against Michigan. They go down on the road in College Park, a team that they have owned. I think they've won the last 5 out of the last 6. They have just been the much better team. Maryland hasn't been all that good lately, obviously, but still, there was a lot of reason to believe that Michigan State was going to falter down there in College Park. Wasn't the case. Clearly a defensive team. Tom Izzo led. They do have some scoring. And you know what? They have that same Sparty mentality, same Sparty vibe, where there's not like that 1 or 2 guys that everybody knows across America. And we're going to learn a thing or two about Michigan State when it comes to tournament time.
Yeah, and what was most impressive about that victory tonight, dominated the glass. Maryland all year has thrived kind of on their front court. They have had good guard play, but Derek Queen and Reese in the front court, those guys have been awesome. And for Michigan State to go on the road and out-rebound them by 12, they held Maryland to only, I believe, 4 offensive rebounds all night as well. Just a really impressive performance by them. So for Michigan State to go in there and win, Michigan State's been the team I've been on the wrong side of all season, whether I bet on them, whether I bet against them. I haven't been able to get my fingerprint on this team. They only go and shoot 15 threes, only make 4 of them, and for them to still find a way to go on the road and win, it's just a gutsy, ballsy performance, and you kind of said it at the top. That's a Tom Izzo. That's a Michigan State-type win. That's just what their kind of identity is, and for my lack of luck or my lack of execution, I guess, on my wagers on Michigan State games, whether it's been for them or against them, I have been saying for probably the last month and a half or so, this is by far the best Michigan State team that Tom Izzo's had in the last 5 to 6 years. I feel like they've kind of just rode off the coattails of identity with Tom Izzo over these past few years and haven't actually been a legit force. This year, I think this is a team that we could see potentially make a Final Four run there. Is it going to come down to the shooting at the end of the day? Most likely, but they've proven time and time again this year that they can win without even making threes.
All right, a lot to catch up on. Obviously, the college basketball catch-up show here. Sean Brace, Ryan Beef Coyle. But at the same time, we do have some action going off here on a Wednesday night. So we'll kind of hit on some of those games that are happening right now, some games that are just about to get started here in the next hour as well. Just to go around again for Michigan State's purposes on DraftKings Sportsbook, when I was looking earlier today to win the national championship, Michigan State 28-1. I think they were 35-1 or 30-1, one or the other, but definitely money came in on them since that victory down in Maryland. I still look at them as potentially a good number to have, a team to have here at 28-1. You know, I could talk myself a little bit more into Michigan State, and I did earlier this afternoon. This isn't a prisoner of the moment, albeit beating Maryland isn't. Maryland's playing well this year, don't get me wrong, but it's still, you know, a team that I really can't convince myself. What's that?
Unproven. Like you're not beating, you know, Duke.
They have good players, though. I do like their roster. I do like their starting five. They have some size down low, good shooters. There's a lot to like, but yeah, unproven is a good word. I'll roll with that one. But anyways, like making the case for Iowa State or Tennessee, I just would pass. I would look at Michigan State. I also said Missouri deserves to be in that conversation with Michigan State as well. I'm sure there are people out there that would convince themselves in talking into A&M. Kentucky is a team that I have my eye on as well. We'll see what they do on Saturday against Auburn. They're obviously in action too this evening as well. But besides Auburn, Duke, Houston, Florida, and Bama, I was trying to come up with some other teams that I could obviously get some action on. So in the long shot-esque look on them, and 28-1 isn't that much of a long shot, but still a nice little payday there. Sparty worth the sprinkle for you to have a ticket at this point in time?
I mean, they say it all the time. January, February, Izzo. It's synonymous with him. Even when he doesn't have his most talented teams, he does his best work in March. It's kind of like when we were talking about with Rick Pitino. Like no one wants to see Michigan State across them in the bracket because Tom Izzo's on that side. So 28-1, like you're saying, it's not that big of a long shot. I think it is like comparable jump. I mean, where I would probably draw the line at like the non-long shots is like Alabama there at 11-1. You get down to 28-1. I think that's a pretty considerable long shot because just even if that's a $10 bet or something, Michigan State goes on to win the tournament 28-1. Sure, I still think that they have a ceiling because I don't think that they can shoot that well. Because if they do play a team like Alabama, we've talked about it time and time again. They're a team that's going to rely on the three ball, and even if Michigan State's defending them well, Alabama's still going to get the threes up. You're going to have to at least match them at some point. And if you get into a match versus a team that can really get up and down and shoot the ball like that, that is going to be the eventual demise, I think, for a team like Michigan State. At the end of the day, you're going to have to score. Jace Richardson has really come alive over the second half of the season. Tom Izzo said basically this is his team, his show. Is he the type of guy that can take over, though, as a freshman? I don't know if I have that much confidence, but if you're going to kind of start to weed out the teams from the top and look at one of these teams to make a run, you definitely have to look at Michigan State there at 28-1.
All right. Yeah, I agree with that as far as that number is concerned. And looking at the bracketology, looking at some of these other numbers that are out there, like Kansas will be a 6 seed. I know they just had a big-time victory on the road in Colorado. That was much needed, but still that's a team that I can't really talk myself into, but there are plenty of people out there that do believe in Kansas. They're at 60-1 right now. Marquette also at 61, Gonzaga 60-1, Clemson at 60-1. I can't sit here and tell you that I think that they're going to win the national championship, but they play well, man. And I don't know what the path is, have no idea who will be in front of them, but that's going to be a tough team to compete with as they're winning right now as we speak to currently in progress. What is your read on Clemson as we are 2.5 weeks out from conference tournament time?
Clemson is another team too where, PJ Hall last year, their best player, graduated. But other than that, they return a bulk of their players from last year and a team that made a deep run in the tournament. Win it all, I probably wouldn't consider that at 60-1. I'd be more inclined to look below them. Louisville at 75-1. Louisville, I think right now is like 15-2. I feel like they're not getting talked about nearly enough. But Clemson, I would not be taking a chance on them at 60-1. I do think that they could be a second weekend type team, but another team for sure that has a ceiling. They don't have kind of that top end talent that I think is normally needed to make that full run to an NCAA tournament title.
All right, other games in progress. Auburn, #1 overall. They're handling Ole Miss. Ole Miss, not a bad team. Game being played in Auburn. They were a pretty big favorite in this one. They're up by 20 plus at this point in time. What's your read on this result here this evening?
I think I saw it on Twitter earlier, kind of just scrolling during the beginning of the games, and I think it was Matt Norlander that said Auburn saw what Duke did to Illinois on Saturday night, and they said basically, that looked fun. Let's go show everyone what we can do as well. I think they're for sure 1 and 2 in the country. You can debate me, you talk to me either way, whether you think it's Duke at 1 or Auburn at 1. I think both teams have a side for sure, but Auburn, just when they get it rolling, it's scary. I am very interested to see, though, once these teams get out of their home environment, because these SEC home games have been so dangerous. Like last weekend was my two biggest bets of the weekend were Arkansas at home against Missouri and Vanderbilt at home against Ole Miss. You got to look at these teams at home in those spots, and both those teams, I got them both as dogs, I believe. So you look at those desperate type teams. I think you got to kind of look at that for this upcoming weekend as well. But these SEC home teams have just been thriving all year. That's what made that Florida win at Auburn even more impressive. But Auburn, Duke, they're the class of the sport right now. They're the 1 and 2, and then you can have a conversation about kind of everyone else. But it has to start and end with Auburn and Duke at the top for your national championship contenders right now.
I'll tell you what, one pick that I gave out earlier, one play that I was looking at, didn't really make it an official play, but Vandy, a lot like football, the Vandy team in football this year, that's a tough team in college hoops, and they were a dog in this one and currently lead A&M on the road in A&M, and they're up by 9 at this point in time. I want to say, I forget what the exact number was as far as the spread was concerned.
I believe it was 7.5.
7.5. Jeez, yeah, it got as high as 8.5. But yeah, at tip off today, 7.5 was your number, and now currently just losing by 9 at this point in time. So long way to go. 6 minutes to be played in that game, but still Vanderbilt, a tough team. They're on the road. A couple late night games we got coming up. The big one for me is Kentucky. Definitely looking at Kentucky a little bit differently than some, but long way to go until I'm starting to really beat my chest over them. They've had some tough losses, but still a good team. Like the coach, we know what the talent that Kentucky is getting. Big one on Saturday against Auburn, though. Any chance that you could be potentially buying into the dog on that one?
I'm buying into the dog for Kentucky tonight with Oklahoma. It goes back to these desperate teams at home. Vanderbilt filled that spot last week. Arkansas, these teams are playing for their tournament life. Oklahoma started off the year 14-0, and since then they've hit a bit of a lull. But it's that gauntlet of the SEC that we talk about time and time again. But you look at Oklahoma's start to the season, their non-conference schedule. They beat St. John's. They beat Louisville. They've beaten some pretty impressive teams. So Oklahoma is a team that is talented in their own right. They were able to get a big win a couple weeks ago. Tonight, I think that they beat Kentucky outright. That's a money line play for me, a desperation type spot. They're a team that is kind of fighting for their tournament lives. Very similar to the play from last night with Georgia against Florida. It's like a gotta have it type of game at home. I think Oklahoma gets it done. If this is Aaron tomorrow, I could look very stupid, or a very smart play by me.
We'll see how that one plays out. All right, we do have some late night action. Utah and Arizona, BYU and Arizona State. BYU a favorite on the road in Arizona State, and Arizona big 14.5-point favorite against Utah. So not much there. We do have some games just about to tip off. We do have Villanova that just tipped off against Seton Hall, and Penn State, Indiana just went live. Let's see here. Dayton is currently winning right now, 75-68. So a couple games that are coming down the end here, but a lot of games just getting started. With that being said, let's go ahead and hit the rewind button, Beef, and let's talk a little bit about some of the games that took place last night. You brought up Florida. Let's talk about that Georgia game last night, though, because Florida was trailing by 26, cut it down. They take the lead eventually, are up by 2, and then ultimately lose that game. Is that going to cost Florida when it comes down to seeding in your mind?
Yeah, Florida was a team that, I mean, they're still going to be in the conversation for a 1 seed, but that's a loss that isn't a great loss for sure against a Georgia team that was kind of on life support. Now Georgia's back in the conversation. for a tournament spot. That was like a gotta have it type game. But it's funny just how good this SEC is. Like after that win last night, Georgia is now 17-11, but they're only 5-10 in the conference, and they're still in the conversation for the tournament. But it goes to show you kind of on any given night how talented these teams are. Like Asa Newell is a 5-star guard for Georgia. They have dudes on that team. It's just some of these teams have just more dudes, are an older team. But Florida, it's no every game in this SEC. It's not a cupcake. Is it going to come back to bite them in the seeding for the long term? Potentially, but Florida's going to have 5 more opportunities potentially to get wins over ranked opponents the rest of the season, and then as they go into the SEC tournament as well. Like they still have plenty of opportunities ahead. So not a game that kills them, but for Georgia, it kind of revives them and gives them some life support. There's now talk that 13 SEC teams could go to the NCAA tournament this year. That is insane. I know we have more teams in the conferences now due to realignment and everything, but to see 13 teams from one conference, and I don't think any of those teams, anybody is going to want to play. You're not looking like, oh, we got the 13th team from the SEC. We're feeling confident about that one. No, those are all teams that can win multiple games in the NCAA tournament.
What's the one team that we're not talking enough about?
In the entire country?
Yeah.
It's a pretty open-ended question there, but I'll go to a team that's been going viral a little bit this week with McNeese State, a team that had a great year last year, first year under Will Wade, go to the tournament. They get ran over by Gonzaga, but it's a team that literally you had guys from high majors kind of transferred down to play there. That is a loaded team, and Will Wade, I think, is for pound, whatever you want to use the term for coaching wise. If you gave me a game to go win, and I would probably put him on my list of the top 10 coaches that I would pick to go win a game. He's a winning coach. It's a dangerous team, dangerous experience from last year as well, and they just continue to roll over everyone. Their conference isn't particularly strong, but they're a team that's not in the top 25, but you're going to hear their name on Selection Sunday more likely than not, and they're going to be like an 11 or 12 seed that a 5 or 6 is going to want to have no parts of playing.
Well, I was leaning towards Houston more than anything with that question, but McNeese State, cool.
Well, I mean, Houston, I feel like they're going to win the Big. They're going to win the Big 12. I mean, their name hasn't.
Yeah, but nobody is talking about them. It's only Duke, it's Auburn, it's SEC. Not a lot of conversation about Houston. And yeah, I get it. They're the 3rd favorite, no doubt about it. There is attention on them. They're not underneath the radar by no means. But I feel like if you were to ask anybody the question that you can't use Auburn, you can't use Duke, who's going to win a national championship? I feel like people are going to skip right over Houston. They're going to say Florida. They're going to go Alabama. They're going to talk themselves into Iowa State. Sorry, lettuce. Talk themselves into Sparty, like myself over here. Just skipping right over Houston.
I got 2 tickets in my portfolio for the national champion. It's Alabama and it's Houston. I think this Houston team isn't as dangerous as last year because they don't have Jamal Shed, but still experience. Like they are the toughest team in the country. They won't be afraid of anyone. If they get a matchup against Duke is a good mix of young and veterans, but every dude on that Houston team is a veteran and they'll rock you right in the face. They're not going to back down from anyone. They have that mindset. They have that mentality. And the Big 12 isn't getting as much shine this year as usual due to the power of the SEC. And definitely more of a down year in the Big 12. You look at some of the top dogs from previous years, and Baylor and Kansas, those teams are struggling compared to previous years and obviously long-term success. But Houston is not afraid of anyone. And when it comes down to that, at the end of the day, the experience that they have on their side as well, that's a team that is Final Four national championship worthy for sure. If you're giving me a pecking order right now, I flip between Auburn and Duke. I keep saying Alabama. Auburn and Duke. Then you have a conversation of the next tier, but that next tier for me certainly starts with Houston just because of their identity. You know what you're going to get from them every single night. They go to Texas Tech the other night and win, and Texas Tech's a damn good basketball team. So Houston, I'd say buy stock in for sure, and don't walk right over them. Don't gloss right over them because they'll make you kind of remember that at the end of the day.
Yeah, man. Like I said, they're the 3rd favorite right now, plus 750 in front of Florida, in front of Bama, in front of Tennessee. So just an interesting name that is getting conversations, around them. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like I said, just people are skipping right over them when you start to debate who could actually win it all this year. And there'll be a 1 seed, right? The overall 1 seeds are going to be Houston. It's going to be Duke. It's going to be Auburn. And then what? The fourth one is up in the air, and we still got some games to be played. And to decide that, it's probably going to be out of the SEC, right?
Yeah, so they have the odds up right now. They don't even have Auburn on the board. Like that's
Yeah.
how much of a lock they are. Then Duke is close to being off the board as well. Houston right now minus 250. Then you got Bama minus 180, Florida Florida plus 125, Tennessee plus 250, Michigan State plus 750, Wisconsin 30-1, Arizona 75-1. So they're kind of looking at potential Big Ten champ, potential Big 12 champ, but it's most likely going to be the two teams from the SEC, the Big 12 champ with Houston, and then the ACC champ with Duke. It's probably going to come down to Alabama, Florida, or if Tennessee wins out in the regular season and then they win the SEC tournament, I think they'll have a conversation at the table as well.
Interesting. Well, we do have some great games coming up on Saturday. One of them happens to feature Alabama and Tennessee, 6 and 5 in the country. Tennessee at home game will be tipping off at 4:00 on ESPN. And as I already said, number one country number one team in the country, Auburn, will be in action 25-2 on the road in Kentucky. Kentucky playing tonight, about to get going here against Oklahoma. Beef liking the Sooners in that one. So we'll see how that one plays out. But a big game, big card coming up on Saturday. And they're only getting bigger and badder at this point in time of the year. We know that. All right. College Hoops catch-up show. Sean Brace, Ryan Beef Coyle with you here on a Wednesday. We opened up shop talking about the dagger from downtown, cooking the Crab-5. What a name. What a nickname there.
So I bet those T-shirts are all around campus. Freaking Sam texted me and said, "This is a mortal lock. This is the biggest game. The student section looks electric." And when you kind of combine all those things together, and you have a team that a little younger, not as experienced in those big type of moments, I think we saw Maryland kind of come out slow. That's a game that you have to come out off the rip ready to go with. But an awesome basketball game there at the end was very exciting. You could kind of question, why did Maryland pull up for a 3? They only needed a 2 for the win. He could have maybe even gotten a little bit closer to the 3-point line. So that's something that is going to be a coaching point talked about for sure. A little bit of momentum going into that shot. But a great college basketball game. Even if you were on Maryland's side, that was an awesome game. And as I said earlier, kind of your appetizer for what's to come over the next month.
Totally agree. What a heave, what a shot. And to see that one go through live in action as we're all tuned in, ready to go, waiting for it to go final. And there it was, like you said, just heaving it up with 2-3 seconds left, whatever it was, going for 3 when all you need is a 2. And then ultimately leading to a long rebound, breakout, and just a heave. There's not much you could do about that. It's just not your day when that's made there. But insane game in February, Beef. We're not in March just yet. It's February. But we are right around the corner from everything, and especially I can't wait for the conference tournaments to be getting going here in 2 weeks as well. How you feeling about the conference tournament? Should we be starting to discuss those a little bit further here? Do you have a favorite in one of them? Do you have a sleeper in one of these conference tournaments that you're eyeing up?
Yeah, those are still moving parts, especially the big conferences. You're going to need to you have 2 weeks regular season even for some. I think tonight though, I think it was 10 o'clock, you'll have the first bracket out, which I believe is the Atlantic Sun. That's usually the first. I think that's the first or the second bid. That'll be like next Sunday. That usually is. That's like your Sunday afternoon. Saturday night next week, when it's like right after Duke, North Carolina, is usually when they play the OVC title game. They usually punch your first ticket there. I can't wait for the Missouri Valley Conference tournament, though. That's always my favorite. Arch Madness. Drake is kind of the team to beat this year. Bradley's a good one. Northern Iowa, you can never count them out. Northern Iowa and Drake just played in an awesome game last week. That's another one that gives out their tournament spot pretty early. I think that might even be next Sunday as well. I would have to double check on that. But Arch Madness, by far my favorite conference tournament besides the big boys. Looking forward to that one this season as well.
All right. College Hoops catch-up show. What's the big pressing deal that we didn't get to here this evening, Beef? What's on your mind when it comes to all things college hoops?
I'll stay with our station, the Villanova Wildcats. I think if they win out and they win a game or two in the Big East tournament, they're going to have a conversation at the table. They're back on the next 4 out, but struggling. I was tempted to place a wager on Seton Hall money line tonight. I said that would be the most kind of Nova thing, to have a great win and then come back, have a disappointing loss. But they have 3 winnable games to fish out the season, and then see what you can do in the Big East tournament. The Big East hasn't looked that dangerous at all this season. I wouldn't be afraid if I was anyone, or afraid of anyone. So look out for Villanova. They're not completely dead yet, and an especially weak bubble if they continue to win games. I think if they finish the regular season undefeated, they'll go like 19-12. You get to 21-12 or something, you're going to have a seat at the table for sure, compared to some of these teams with much inferior records.
Not off to a good start against Seton Hall.
No. Seton Hall plus 7.5.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. A lot of game to go in that one. All right. Well, look, this is what we plan to do. We plan on going live a lot more, especially following some of these great games out here. And Rob checking in. Appreciate the squad. My man, always a pleasure catching up with you. You saw a great high school basketball game last night.
Awesome. It was I had to get tickets from a kid's brother who's on the team. It was a sold-out game within 20 minutes, and I was able to finesse a ticket. Had to stand the whole game up against the wall in the corner, but it was an awesome game. It was 2 of the most storied programs kind of in the public school for the Philadelphia area.
Did you go by yourself?
I met up with the kid. They got me the ticket. And I stood next to 3 coaches on St. Joe's. There's Temple coaches, Penn coaches, Drexel. It was an awesome kind of environment. Now that was the semifinals, so it's championship on Friday at St. Joe's.
Are you going up to that one at Hagen?
Another date. I'm on a generational run right now.
Are you?
Yep.
Generational run. I like it. Keep it going. Stay hot, Beef. Stay hot. Are any of them on a dance team?
No dance team.
No dance teams? All right. Keep swinging, my friend. Keep swinging.
Yeah, didn't get any answers back in the DMs on that one.
All right. Great stuff, Beef. Always a pleasure. Everybody, if you missed anything, at foxphlgambler.com, college hoops. Yeah, all eyes on the madness that is fast approaching. Once again, give us a follow at foxphlgambler.